Hi, I'm Michael Tolosa. Welcome to the Layman podcast. This week, I'm joined by a special guest, Kristine Zell, coming to us from Houston, Texas. So, welcome, Kristine.
Hi, Michael. It's so good to see you. I'm so honored to be on your podcast. I have to tell you, I was really, when you have the New Year's resolutions and you're thinking about New Year, I always have like a word for the year that the Lord puts on my heart.
Huh?
And he gave me the word intentional. And I was just really praying, okay, like, what does that look like? What does that mean? And I really want to be intentional with the gifts he's given me. And I was just praying for an opportunity to speak. And you came along. So I just want to thank you so much that the Lord opened this door and I got to meet you and we get to do this today. I'm really excited.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you. You have over 20 years of it on-camera broadcast experience. You started as a reporter. You were doing interviews for these special events. You since moved on to be like a news anchor, and you actually won an Emmy Award, I believe, which we can get into. And then you were co-hosting like local morning shows, like the one here in Charlotte, and then ended up on QVC, a national TV host experience, and then you have a new adventure since then. So again, I just want to just learn from you, from your experience, and how you got into broadcast journalism, and your experience as a Christian in this field as well.
Absolutely. I grew up in Minnesota and my parents were very intentional. My dad led my mom to the Lord. And my mom grew up Catholic, but she really had a saving faith when she met my dad. And immediately my mom she was so into the faith. It was like insatiable for her. Like she just joined every Bible study. And when it came time for me to go to school, it was really important for my parents to send me to a Christian private school. So for me growing up, I was always in the church. I was around it at school, my school friends. So because for me, growing up in the faith, it was always like, gosh, I never really doubted or never really had a moment where it was like, okay, this is the defining moment, until I'll get to that later when it really became a personal relationship. But I'll say my faith was always with me. I always loved the Lord. I believed in him. Whenever there was a prayer meeting or a worship service or something going on at school or church, I just wanted to be there. I wanted to be near the Lord's presence. But I will say I never really received the apologetic side of it. It was just like, this is what we believe. This is why we believe it. And so I'm in that phase right now of my faith, homeschooling my kids, which I'll tell you how I got to that point.
Wow.
But really trying to teach them to defend our faith, I think, especially in the culture that we're in now. So I will say my faith has always been a part of my life, but I wish I had more boldness when I started out in the business. And how I started was, I think there was a local commercial on one day for a modeling school in town. And I told my mom, I'm like, I want to do that. I want to be an actress. I want to be a model. And I think a lot of little girls dream that. So she signed me up for the classes, did a pageant, and the Lord just gave me this desire, and he gave me the gifts and the talents to continue to pursue it, which I'm so grateful for. Because as an actor too, and being in this business, like when you get that feeling in your heart, it's like, oh, I just want to do that so bad. And it's such a passion. You just want to get behind the creative project. You want to get in front of the camera. So I always had that. Whenever there was a camera around, I remember the Mall of America opened in Minnesota, and we went, and all the news reporters were there, and I just wanted to sneak in the background and watch what they were doing. And so that was something that was really important to me, was to learn that craft. And I do remember praying, like, Lord, you gave me this desire. Can you open the doors for me? And I remember praying that at a young age. So I did a couple of commercials growing up for Target with Joey Lawrence and Land O'Lakes. There were just a few projects that came along, and that was really fun. And then when I was 14, going back to the Mall of America, they had a huge open call. Now, this was like kind of my playground growing up. My mom would drop me off. Back in the day, like we were mall rats in the 90s. She would just drop us off with $20 and we'd go see a movie or whatever. So she dropped me off that day. And I just saw all these people gathered in the rotunda, and I'm like, what are they doing? And they had an open call audition for a local teen news show. They wanted to start news programs program specifically for teens.
Wow.
So I stood in this like 3-hour long wait, before cell phones, and I had to go find a payphone, call my mom, like pick me up after dinner,
Mhm.
waited in the line, and they called me back. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I had to go into the studio. It's Care 11 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And they had me do a mock interview. And from there, they called me back again. And so it just kept progressing. And I think after about like 5 callbacks, I realized I got the job. And so they picked about 5 reporters. And it was really fun because that was the height of Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, NSYNC. So they would all come to the Mall of America, and we would interview them and follow them in the day in the life of. And so by the time I got to college, I had this strong newsreel just by working in the news through junior high and high school. So I had a strong sense of what I wanted to do when I went to college. And then I went to Pepperdine, studied broadcasting. And while I was in Los Angeles, they have all the red carpet premieres. So again, the Lord just opened the door they had for me. So they do what's called press junkets. A lot of these TV outlets want the film from the actors and the actresses that are in the movies, but they normally have to fly a reporter out, do the sit down interview, and fly them back. So they were like, well, you're already in LA. We already have a reputation with you through working through working through Care 11. So can you just do this while you're living there? And that will save us money on the back end.
Wow.
So yeah, so I got to do the press junkets, meet, Will Ferrell and all these fun people at the time. And
That's like a dream job right there. You
it
just
was a dream job.
You have somebody's paying you to go and talk with celebrities.
And I'm in college. I'm just like,
yeah.
Like I was so poor, right? And I was so hungry. They give you this little per diem, which I think it was like $50 a day. You could eat whatever in the hotel. So it was just like the best.
Wow. That is a great gig.
The Lord just really paved the way and opened all the doors. I didn't strive for it or try to figure out. It was just, I felt that the Lord was like, this is your calling. This is what you're doing. I'm going to open the doors. And LA was so fun, but it was so glamorous, so bright and shiny. And then my first job out of college is Mason City, Iowa, which is like population, I don't know, maybe 10,000 people. I met my husband there. It ended up being an amazing experience, but it was humbling at the same time, so going from the red carpet to going to the farm and doing a hog report and, the farm crops and those reports. But the Lord used that time to really draw on him because the hours got weird. In college, it was fun. And then it was overnights because the morning news starts at 4 a.m. But then in these small towns, they don't have producers or editors. So I would write the entire newscast. I'd edit all the tape.
Wow.
I would write all the stories. So I got in at like 11 p.m. to get the newscast ready for 4 a.m. And then I'd report after that morning show and report till about noon. So it was like 13-hour days, 5 days a week. It was a burnout, but you just kind of jump on the hamster wheel and you just do it. And then from Iowa, moved to South Carolina, where you are now, and then there to Charlotte. And so, yeah. So with news, you sign these 2-year contracts.
Oh,
and
only 2 years.
Your first contract, you might get paid $14,000. It's like tiny, and that's your yearly salary. And then so your goal is to work your way up to eventually a big enough market like Charlotte where you can make a pretty good living wage. But everyone was like, did you just not like your job? And it's like, no, I loved the people and I learned so much, but that's the nature of the business. Unless you have family that lives there or a spouse that supports you, you really have to keep moving to get that paycheck.
So when you get to Charlotte, like, was there still like the expectation that this was only going to be 2 years or whatever, and then you were going to have to move on, or was that fully your choice?
That was our first move where it was like, okay, this is home. I loved Charlotte, and we ended up getting married in South Carolina, then moving to Charlotte together, and we were pregnant with Mason, my first son. So then we built a home in Huntersville, and we're like, this is our home. This is it. We're done. And, famous last words, you don't tell God your plans. And I just didn't even open the door to ever moving again. I really loved that job. And then my agent called, let's see, it was 2016. It was an election year and I was so busy. In an election year, it was so busy. And he said, what do you think about trying out for QVC? And I was like, I mean, it sounds fun. I don't even really watch QVC, so I got to watch and then I'll get back to you. But I watched and I'm like, oh, you get paid to shop on TV? This is amazing. So then I did end up trying out, and very similar to the other one, it was that one I sent in a tape selling something. It was a little grilling machine I had at home, and I sold that. And then from there, they flew me to New York City to audition, and then to QVC in Pennsylvania to audition, and then ended up getting a spot, which I didn't know was such a big deal at the time. But I just have to credit it all to the Lord. The agent told me about it, and he opened all the doors. And that's always been my prayer every time I put my name out there was, if you have me in this city and this is for me, then fling open the door, just make it crystal clear that this is where you have me. And if it's not, then just shut it. And that was my prayer with QVC. I'm like, if you don't want us to move again, because we were so involved in our church, our small group, I was pregnant now again with my daughter. And I just was like, to move again sounded like a lot. So, but he made it abundantly clear that that was where we were to be. And I always have people that I call and I say, hey, will you pray for me? And I don't tell them what it is. I'm like, I just need you to pray for me. And then tell me what the Lord is giving you. And I had a couple of friends say, I think he's asking you to maybe move again. And I'm like, okay. So that was clear that it was time to go. But I miss Charlotte. To this day, I'm like, I could go back there.
Well, before we get to QVC, I do want to spend some time with your experience in Charlotte, because something funny happened. I guess a lot of funny things happen on a live broadcast all the time.
Sure.
But I keep seeing clips of you and your co-hosts on these news fails things that, like, my family loves to watch. We just watch like hour-long news fails, like compilations. And this one just keeps showing up. I mean, you weren't like the one embarrassed or anything, but
okay.
But it involved Adam Driver and something that I believe her name is Caitlin.
Caitlin, yeah.
Caitlin Cody said, and I'll show it for our viewers.
Good morning, Boone. Taking a live look for you this morning at 7:43 from resortcams.com. A look at the temperatures with Caitlin is up in just a minute when we have your forecast. Right now, though, Snickers adding a new layer to the Super Bowl commercial hype. For the first time ever, there's going to be a live commercial.
Wow, what could go wrong? It'll star Adam Driver, known for The Force Awakens and Girls. Other celebrities are expected to stop by. Snickers aren't saying that much about what the commercial is about, but hinted it has a Western theme. It'll air during the third quarter.
Hopefully it doesn't get the jitters.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, I guess they have to keep figuring out new things to get people to really tune in. We'll see. But now it's 7:43, so it's time to get a check on the weather for the day.
Yeah, she was acting like we were talking about Ryan Reynolds or something.
I think he is one of the funniest people on earth. Although I guess you have to watch the show Girls to understand, but
that's never going to happen.
He is
Never.
hilarious.
Not enough money in the world.
He kind of looks like my brother, too. Maybe that's why I give him a... You go, dude.
What?
All right. What? I didn't say he was cute. I didn't say that. All right. Let's talk about the weather. 60 degrees. Ew. All right, it's cloudy in Charlotte. 60 now, but temperatures. You gotta stop laughing. All right, here we go. I can't. Oh my goodness. I'm like sweating. Okay, wait, no, I got this.
They're trying to dump out and go to traffic, and she's like, no.
I got it. I got it.
I needed it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just crying a little bit. 60 degrees in Charlotte right now. All right, never mind. Here you go. I'm like way too hot. I can't talk. Oh my God.
So that's the... Okay.
do you remember that happening? And was that like the most high profile kind of blooper that happened while you were there?
Well, there in Charlotte, but not the most high profile ever. But that one has been taken off the internet because our news director like had it paid to get taken down. But it was a very innocent mistake. You know, sometimes when you're up all hours of the night, you get a little silly because you're on very little sleep, a lot of caffeine, and you become a family, like in acting too. And you know this, I called Derek, who is my co-host in Charlotte, my work husband. I spent more time with Derek than my actual husband. And, you know, we're writing stories together. We're in the newsroom together. We're reporting together. We do community events together. If there's a gala, we MC. I mean, we were just together all the time. So you bond. And Caitlin too. She was like my best friend because I spent all my time with her. So you get us on air and you forget the camera's rolling sometimes because you're just having a ball and you're having so much fun. But with that, yeah, you get consequences like blooper reels. But the one, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this and you can edit it.
Okay.
Should I say it? It's not a swear word, but the most high profile one was I was reading a Bloomberg report.
Okay.
And I was writing the script, but I was so tired that day. And I wrote economic nipples instead of ripples.
Right.
And so I said it straight faced. I'm like, and the economic nipples. And my co-host like looked at me and he just lost it. And he's crying, laughing, and he cannot finish the sentence that we're supposed to be sharing.
Oh, that's funny.
That was the most high profile one. I think that,
Oh,
but that was at a different station. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll have to find that one then.
A U.S. company is being charged with doing business with terrorists.
That's right. And the economic nipples have called on Wall Street. Oh my goodness. Did you put that in there as a joke?
I think that should be ripples.
I think that's a typo. Okay, and economic ripples, excuse me. They have called on Wall Street. And we're wondering, will it continue today? The details in the Bloomberg Business Report.
So was that before Charlotte or, well, obviously.
Yeah, that was in Iowa. I thought I was going to lose my job because it was my first job out of college and it was like week 2. And I was like, oh no. But I do remember the Adam Driver one. I'm like blushing just thinking about it.
Yeah. So you all, I guess, were you all on a similar contract or something? Because you all kind of left at the same time.
Yeah, Derek had been there a little bit longer. Caitlin and I were very close and we were both talking in the dressing room every morning. She was like I said, my best friend. And I was like, Caitlin, like QVC is calling and I don't know what to do. I'm in a contract, but that was coming up. I mean, again, the Lord's provision, like the timing of everything allowed me to stay faithful in my contracts, which, you know, you make a promise, you want to fulfill it. But there's timelines with all these contracts, like QVC needed someone by this date. And, you know, this contract at WCCB was till this date. So it can get very convoluted and lawyers get involved because you're just trying to match it all up. And Caitlin was in the same situation. Our contract was up around the same time. And she's like, oh, well, Chicago's calling. And so we just, honestly, those few months were so sweet because we got to pray together. We drove each other to the airport. We talked about what we were going to do. And she had gotten married in Charlotte and loved Charlotte too. So we had a lot of conversations about, is this the right move? Should we do this? And it was nice to have a person in the same boat to talk to and that understands. And then Derek was, it's funny because now Derek's in my hometown of Minneapolis and my father passed away suddenly in the fall and he showed up at the funeral and I just like got to hug him and we still have a great friendship. So yeah, but we've all since moved on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you moved on to a national spotlight. So on the QVC network.
I was so excited because I just never thought, I wrote in my journal, like maybe the Today Show, maybe Access Hollywood, you know, I'd love to go national. And I think whether you're an actor or an actress or you're doing a podcast, when you're in this business and we know too, as Christians, like you're working for the Lord, not for man. And so I just love to work and I want to work hard and I want to do my best and I want to please the Lord. And so, yeah, I mean, I always had a goal of like, as far as you want to take me, I'm ready. Like, let's go. And I I guess I didn't really think it would actually happen. And so when that national door opened, I just was like, thank you. I'm so grateful. But I will say, I think he's like any parent, right? Like your kids beg and beg and beg, and you're like, okay, I know it's best for you, but I'm also going to let you learn a lesson.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so QVC was one of those, you think you know what you want until it actually happens. And I want to preface it with like QVC, everyone I worked with was amazing. I love the people there so much, and I love the opportunity. What was really difficult and what I didn't see going into it was I had my 18-month-old son when we moved, and I had 2 weeks to move. So I got the job, and we had just built this dream, built our home in Charlotte, and we had only been there a little over a year. And so we had to pack up all our things in 2 weeks, move to Philadelphia area, and leave everything we know. And we moved into a tiny apartment where I was very pregnant, and I had my daughter. And it just felt very like, okay, we're moving and we're having a baby and we're starting a new job. And there was a huge learning curve with QVC because broadcasting and news is one thing, but sales is another. And QVC really is a sales job that happens to be on air. But my whole background was just on air.
Right.
So I had to go through a very extensive course to learn how to sell. And that was like, whoa, yeah, that was hard. And so you're taking in all this information while you're trying to get to your doctor's appointments and find a house. And that was a lot. And then once the job started, the hours was what was really tough. I had a newborn baby. I think I took like maybe 6 weeks off and went back to work when she was around 6 weeks. And their call on one day could be like, we need you at 10 p.m. in hair and makeup, and you're going to be on the air at 1 a.m. So we always showed up 3 hours before our shift to get into hair and makeup, look at what we're selling, talk to all the vendors who are bringing in their product to sell. And then you meet the on-air guest that will be co-hosting with you. And we could have, I don't know, say you're on a 4-hour shift and every sale is 8 minutes. You're meeting a lot of guests. And so it's just really rapid fire, and you have to know a little bit about every product, and every product changes every day. So you're constantly studying, and the schedule is always changing. So yeah, one day it might be 10 p.m. The next day they want me in at 3 p.m. Then the next day they need you in at 6 a.m. It's just, there was no circadian rhythm. There was no schedule. There were no weekends. There were no holidays. It just one day rolled into the next. And by year 2, I had really hit a wall and a lot of fatigue with like 2 little kids on top of it. And my husband was working from home and trying to start a business. So I went to the doctor and I'm like, I think I'm dying. And they're like, no, you're just tired. So at that point, I just started praying like, Lord, either please change my schedule or take me out of this, because I can't at this pace. And then they started another channel called QVC2, which was a daytime channel. And then my hours started to steady out, which was wonderful. And I hit a stride with QVC where it was like, okay, like hours are good. I understand this job now. I'm having fun. And then bam, COVID hit, because I went to QVC at, 2017. So I'd only been on the job 3 years when I felt like I really hit a good rhythm. And with that came job cuts. So the Lord.
You would think that like during COVID, QVC would be going back gangbusters, like everyone's at home. They're not going shopping at brick and mortar stores. So but it sounds like QVC was having to do layoffs because they were losing money during COVID.
They did a massive layoff, and I don't know exactly why. The only thing I can think of is maybe the other shopping opportunities out there, like Amazon and such, just have really taken over the world. That, QVC leaned into it. We definitely never went off the air with COVID. I mean, we were one of the essential workers. I remember getting stopped on the road in Philly at like 3 a.m. and they're like, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm headed to work. I had my badge. I had a work note." And yeah, we definitely had upped production and upped our hours. But then let's see, it was around July, there was just a huge, like I think 2,000 employees were let go, and about a third of the host team was part of that. So
Okay.
I was one of them. Yeah.
Now, speaking of the host team, like when you came on board, I saw like a magazine cover of like you being part of this like Fab Five kind of new class of hosts that came in, and I just saw a comment, random like blog comment or something saying that I think only one of those of the five are still there.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
guys they were part of the layoffs, you all.
Yeah, that was hard because we were so close too. We really came in as a family and we trained together, and we all had moved from all different parts of the country and didn't know anyone except each other. And they were wonderful, wonderful, talented people. But yeah, I think what's interesting about QVC is if they really, really listen to their customer base. There's like a core customer base, and they do a lot of peer groups and study groups. And if they say that they're not latching on to a host by a certain time, they really take all of that into consideration. So yeah, I'm really grateful for the experience. I know that the Lord gave me a taste of my dream and allowed me to go where I wanted to go with it. But now it's like, I can see that it was all about me. Even though I loved the Lord, it was like, the climbing, all those years of moving and climbing, and all those years of just trying to be the best at what you do. There's a verse that I love. It's in the Psalms. I'll have to look it up. I think it's Psalm 81:10, but it's like, open your mouth wide and I will fill it. For so many years, I had to say what the teleprompter said, or what the news outlet wanted me to say, or what QVC wanted me to say, or I had to say about a product. And I know that all those years aren't wasted, but moving forward, when I open my mouth, I want it to be for the Lord, and I want it to be filled with His words. And I think, yeah, it's just interesting because and that's where in the beginning when I said, when it came to a saving true relationship, was when I lost my job at QVC. All of the busyness had gone away. The crazy hours that I had done for, like you said, 20 years, all in a day, that wheel I was on for all those years, since I was even in school and under my mom and dad's roof, that hectic schedule just all disappeared. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And so it was be still with the Lord. And I joined, for the first time, I had time to join the local Bible study at my church and to volunteer and get involved. And that was where I really met the Lord. And I was like, okay, now we're reading the Bible. Like before, I was so busy, I would like get a little word in here, a little word in here. And this chapter of my life was like, okay, I can sit, open the word, hear from Him. Because before I was just kind of filling it. Yeah, it was just a really sweet, sweet time after everything came to a screeching halt. At first, I was devastated. And then it was like, okay, we've got a whole new chapter here. So He just really made a way for me to sit and be still. And the kids were in a little preschool program in the morning. So from 9 to 12, I would just sit with my Bible and I'm like, show me where we're going next.
Wow, 9 to 12 every day. What a luxury that is.
Luxury.
Spend in the Word for that uninterrupted for 3 hours. That's awesome. But so the way you described it, you said it was like you came to a saving kind of faith during this time. Is that what did you mean, that like you feel like He opened your eyes like to
the
real kind of like what this really means, Christianity means?
Yes, I think that's it. Yeah, I do believe that I was saved before, because I, without a shadow of a doubt, believed Jesus Christ is Lord, professed it with my mouth, and never doubted. But maybe saving isn't the right word. I love how you said that. Like, He opened my eyes and that personal relationship started. And it was like, this is now between you and I. This isn't borrowed faith from my parents. This isn't what my Sunday school teacher said, or even my professor, because I went to a Christian private college after attending a Christian private school. I think I just was receiving all these words and I believed all the words, but I never took the time to spend with Jesus. So that was that was the turning point for me in my faith, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was raised in a Christian home as well. Went to Christian school and everything. But, there are times in my life where I feel like, we're constantly being sanctified and being
Yes.
made more like Christ. And so there are these certain kind of milestones in our life where things make more sense, or he brings us closer and he makes us more like him. And so I don't know exactly when I was saved, but I do point to things like during college when I just knew, like when I turned over my life to him, like to control, like I knew that I've been trying to control my life and it was a failure, and I was like, I know I can't do that and I can't control it. And I turned it over to him. But, maybe that was just more of the sanctification. Maybe I was saved as a child, so I don't know.
I believe that. I love that. I love how you said that. 100%. I have tears in my eyes. It's so beautiful. It's just, he's always pursuing us. And it's like, are we listening? Are we paying attention? And I heard someone say once, busy is being under Satan's yoke. And in our culture, it's so hard to not be busy. But when he gives you those gifts of time to just hear from him, it's so sweet.
So you were in Pennsylvania at the time that you found out that you were not going to be at QVC anymore. So this is 3 years into it after moving from Charlotte. What then were you thinking as far as like where you're going to go next geographically, or were you going to stay there? And what brought you to Texas?
That's a good question. So when you have an automatic pilot, like for 20 years, it was, I hadn't experienced a layoff yet, but I always knew I had my agent in my back pocket, and he was always kind of looking for me and looking for the next thing. So my first phone call was him. I'm like, guess what? You're going to have to find me another job. And so he did. He was sending my tapes out and my resume out, and things were coming, but I just didn't feel the peace. Like every other move I had made, it felt like, okay, this is right. We're going to step into this. And for the first time, I was like, hold on, maybe I need a minute. So I told him, I said, I think I'm just going to take a little break. It was scary because the house was in my name. The insurance was in my name. I was the primary breadwinner, if you will. So my husband and I, and he was so supportive. I was like, I need a minute, and we're just going to have to trust the Lord with the provisions. And my husband had been starting this little business with his, I don't want to say little, but he started this business with his brother, but it was small and it didn't make much money. But then the Lord he got another client, and then he got another client. And then before we knew it, we're like, okay, that was God. Like he is making a way for us to pay the monthly bills on the house and to live. And so we took that opportunity to just seek him and pray. And for a minute there, I was thinking about going back to work, but then I love podcasts, and I love your podcast, by the way.
Thank you.
And I started listening to this podcast series on homeschool, and I was like, and this is COVID, right? So our kids are in a really weird learning environment. And I'm like, maybe I could homeschool. I never, ever thought, like ever. And my heart was softening. The more I listened to this podcast, I would take a daily walk and listen to it. I'm like, I should think about that. I should pray about that. And we went to go visit some friends in North Carolina, and I was on a walk and met someone who was homeschooling her kids. And we talked, and I said, okay, maybe I can do this. So then my plan was to homeschool. So I started meeting with some people from church and looking into how that would all look. And then my husband's like, I think if we do this, we might need a little help and support, because we had never lived by family before and nothing was keeping us in Pennsylvania. We loved our church. That was the hardest goodbye. We had amazing, amazing friends to this day that are our family, but we didn't have blood relatives. So my husband's from Texas, and he was like, why don't we go back to Texas? And I was like, why don't we go to Minnesota? That's where my family is.
There's snow in Minnesota.
He's like, that's too cold. And so being the leader of the household, and of course we prayed and talked about it, it was like clear that Texas was going to be where we put down our roots. And so now we're part of a homeschool hybrid. It's a university model, which is really big here in Texas. There's a lot of those to choose from. So the Lord, again, made a way, because I'm like, I'm not a teacher. there's a homeschool hybrid. That's amazing. So they go into the classroom Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I have them home Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So right now it's just my husband works from home. The kids are home a lot. We're just all home, and grandma and grandpa are down the street. So it's been a restful season, and also reclaiming, or why don't I use this word, like a restoration of our family, because for so long, my husband and I, he was a sports pastor as well. That's how we met. So he would travel for sports. He would work late nights. I was early mornings. I was, so we were ships in the night. And then when we had our kids and he was starting his business and I was at QVC, we had live-in nannies. We had babysitters around the clock. I mean, I didn't watch my kids grow up for the first 3 to 4 years of their life. And so the season after QVC was like, okay, my priorities are in line with what I want. I want to be a mom. I want to be a wife. I want to be home. And so it's amazing how the Lord put that passion and that desire for so many years to want to be on camera. And now that desire has really, at least in the way it was with news and hosting, that's just totally gone away. And now it's home, and I just want to be home. And, different seasons, I think he changes our hearts, and I'm just really grateful. But I am at a point now where I've been home for about 3 years, and I just am like, okay, Lord, I want to use my communication skills again, but I want to use it for you. And that's when you called. I was like, what? Okay, God, you're so good.
Well, not to put you on the spot, but I've been considering how I could improve my podcast by having a co-host. But,
oh my gosh.
but anyway.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. The Lord is, his timing's so good.
So, I mean, your life has been relocating for jobs, and, built into that is, those are two of the highest stresses that we can experience in life, is a job change and relocation, moving. And so constantly experiencing those two. But then on top of that, with your move to Westchester, you were having a child too. And you were actually in temporary housing, as it were, while experiencing 3 of those largest stressors in someone can experience in life. So it's no wonder why God said you need some time. You need to relax for a bit.
So. A little healing to do. And you kind of learn to live in that fight or flight stage. And I didn't really know any different. And then when you stop, it's like, oh, yeah, that wasn't healthy. And that wasn't good for my health. I mean, it's amazing how the body really gives you signals. I was losing so much hair, and there were just a lot of things going on. Cholesterol that was through the roof, and I eat pretty healthy. So I was kind of and I like to work out. That's how I reduce my stress. So I was thinking, I wonder why it's so high. Well, stress.
Right. So that's awesome. So now you're in Texas, you have family support, which is always great when you have kids, to have family that they can stay with for a while. And you are homeschooling. Your husband his work is taken off, sounds like. Is he now the breadwinner for you?
Yeah, he's the breadwinner. Yes, and I think he likes that. It's funny how, and I'm all for doing your thing, but when it lines up, I mean, it does say biblically, right? The man is, I think, because how do I say this? Because I made the money, and because I was, we're moving here, we're doing this, I sort of started to take on that role of what God always intended for him to do. And when they went back to where they should have been, there was so much peace in the home. Wow. And not that we've, praise God, always had a very strong marriage, but again, sometimes you don't see things until they're right. And you're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. And you're the leader and we're following you, and this is good. And so, yeah, it's been it's been the Lord's provision for sure. I'm so grateful that I know it's a luxury and not everyone has the opportunity to stay home with their kids. So it's something I don't take lightly. I'm very privileged to do that with them, but it's been a really sweet time.
That's great.
Yeah.
But you still have this urge to do something communications wise. So are you looking for opportunities?
Yeah, I'm not looking. It's funny because off my phone, I deleted my social media accounts, and I've just been quiet and trying to stay present here at home, which in our field, you normally have to do a lot of networking and putting yourself out there and promoting. So I just was like, okay, whatever happens, happens. And then about a year and a half ago, HSN started calling and they needed a brand ambassador. So that was totally random. And I started doing that, loved it, had a great time. I worked with Christian Siriano from Project Runway, and he came up with a clothing line for HSN. And when he was at award shows, I would go to Tampa and rep his brand. And there's been little jobs along the way. Longaberger, which is the basket company, I don't know,
Okay.
Out of Ohio. They needed a spokesperson. So I did that for 2 years. There's been little jobs that have come along, but only if they come to me.
Mhm.
As far as seeking, the only thing that I've been praying about is something like this. Like if you have something where I can get on a stage or a podcast or somewhere where I can speak your name, then I want to be there. And it's interesting how the Lord's answered that prayer. Last year, my 95-year-old grandfather passed away, and I was asked to speak at his funeral. And that was the first time that the Lord answered that prayer. I know it sounds weird to say it like that, but I think he prepares us, right? And he goes before us. And so I think that was an opportunity to get up and share the gospel, because I didn't know the people in that room. I didn't know if they knew the Lord or not. And I know that there were family members there that perhaps was either on the fence or didn't believe. So it was like, okay, we're not wasting this opportunity. We're going to preach the gospel. And of course, bring up how amazing Grandpa is. But he's amazing because he passed down his faith. He followed not just a moral code, but the way of Jesus, and got to, because of his life, got to preach the gospel. And then in October, my dad passed away suddenly and very, very close. Yeah, it's been a really weird last 3 months, but the Lord, again, I was asked by my mom to speak at his funeral, and it was like, okay, we're going to get up and we're going to preach the gospel, and we're going to have prayer partners at the front. And I don't want this to be a funeral that's whoa, 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 and crying and crying. It's like, no, my dad left a legacy again. And I have my faith because he sacrificed his time, and he worked with the Billy Graham organization and did prison ministry. And I just got to watch his life, and that allowed me to share the gospel because of the way he lived. And so back-to-back years speaking at a funeral, it kind of got me thinking like, oh, I would love to stand up and somehow, some way share my story, but in a way that brings others to know Jesus.
Yeah. I'm sorry that you experienced the loss, but I'm glad that God uses, as we know, God uses all things for good.
He wastes nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess in closing, my podcast is primarily to inspire Christians to live out, to glorify God in whatever calling that he's given to them, in whatever profession. So I like to feature people in different professions who are using it for his glory. And for those who are looking into or desiring to be on camera, to be hobnobbing with the celebrities and, being featured on national broadcasts like QVC. Do you have any advice for a Christian looking to break into broadcast journalism?
That's really good. I love that, because I used to seek out these kind of questions when I was looking for jobs, and it was like, okay, what do I need to know? So I love that you asked that, because it's important. And I think as Christians, we need to support each other. And I love that you have this podcast, because we can see, like watching Melissa last week, it's like, okay, I have a daughter who's really interested in acting, and she has someone she can look up to and watch that has chosen to do films that honor the Lord. And I loved her testimony of like, okay, sometimes we make mistakes, but we seek out the roles that have redemption or that honor the Lord. And I would say the same with broadcasting. I'll start with how to break in. Absolutely have to network. I mean, I thought it was going to college, getting your first job. But even my first job out of college, the news director said she hired me only because I went to Pepperdine and because she had a friend that she liked that went to Pepperdine. And so it wasn't that I had the best tape. She told me that. I just had the right name on my resume that caught her attention. So I would say, if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to give you my email for the notes or whatever. If anyone wants to email me, I'm happy to help anyone that needs a contact. I have a lot of friends still in the business. I think just getting in and getting that first job and starting to meet people, and just that was the thing. When I moved a lot, I met a lot of people, and now I can turn on the TV. I went to Vail to go skiing with my husband, and I turn on the local news and I'm like, oh, hey, look, like so-and-so is here now. And we have friends in Dallas. We'll go to Dallas. And I'm like, oh, there's Brian. And so it's fun. I'll go home to Minneapolis and I watch 3 of my friends on the local news there. And it's a very small business, broadcast news. So as you get to know people, it's not burning those bridges. It's making those friendships. It's honoring each other's opinions. And a lot of times now in news, they want your opinions, which used to never be like that. It was, we want unbiased, no fluff. And now it seems like they're hiring people just to talk, and tell us your opinion. And so on the 4-hour morning show I was on in Charlotte, I had an opportunity to speak my mind and talk about church. And even on QVC, it was like, oh, I could wear this outfit when I go to Bible study and then to pick up my kids. And it's just talking about your real life. It's walking and not just talking the talk, it's walking the walk. So when you do the things as a Christian and you're following him, that isn't separate from what we do in our career. It's like, okay, we just weave that in as we have those conversations. And I wish I would have been more bold for what I believe in, and just in those young years, like, okay, no, this is what I stand for. And if you don't like it, then I'm not the girl for this job. And I have really good friends at QVC. In our contract, it says, you're expected to work all hours, all days. And she's like, my church only meets on Sunday mornings and I cannot work from this time to this time. And if that doesn't work for you, then I'm not the girl for this job. Where for me, I was like, I want to be on QVC. Like, I'll do anything, And I think you just have to know your non-negotiables. Like, if you love a church and your church meets at this time and you're expected to work, because in broadcasting, you have all these crazy hours. Or no, I won't say that, or I don't stand for that. There's a lot of scripts that are going to come your way that you're expected to read. And you can say, no, that I'm not, you can give that to my co-host, or I don't agree with the way that story is written. And I do know that the news needs Christian voices more than ever before, and people to tell the truth and people to seek out the truth, and not to be just someone on TV and become a name. It's like the Lord needs those Christian journalists. So I'm specifically praying for that next group that comes in, that they have that boldness and preach the truth. And yeah,
I feel like with everything going on politically or whatever, that the tide is kind of turning in favor of Christians. And there's going to be a lot less canceling of Christian voices, I think, in the near future. So I'm hoping for a nice resurgence in that field for us.
Yes. And it just be you. And I will just say the Lord opened all my doors. Like, as much as I worked hard and I made those relationships, and I will say I went above and beyond when it came to networking and showing up to things. Just always show up if you're invited to something, or connecting on those social media platforms. But then, just let the Lord lead and just pray through those things. And if something doesn't feel right, I moved a lot. That was my path. But sometimes looking back, I'm like, maybe I should have settled just a little bit longer. And, I think not always chasing, and just seeing what the Lord has for you.
Yeah. Wise words. Thank you for sharing your life story and your advice. That pretty much wraps up our conversation, but I feel like I want to hear that what's next for you. So I'll keep tabs on what's going on with you. Hopefully you'll be able to kind of use those communication skills in the future as your children are getting older, and maybe you're not needed to monitor them as often as you need to right now. But
there's a new season on the horizon.
Yeah. Well, good. Best of success on your next endeavors. Thank you again, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I'll keep watching and listening, and I think it's great what you're doing. I can't wait to see every week who you have. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you.